yeah, so this effect that I made a really long time ago that people may find useful, but I never got around to showing it on the stream and diving into how it's done. So the basic effect is you can move these like things around like that. So you can throw these cans around and stuff, which isn't that impressive. You can just turn on movable, whatever. But you see how they're lighting up white. Oh, we've got some that are bugging out. There we go. So as you get near them with the imp, then they become white and become movable and stuff. But while you're over here, you can't move any of them. And it also has some extra logic. So try this over here. It knows that it's number 1, and then but then if you leave it for a while, then these normal ones, if you've like moved it and stuff, it'll wait until it stops moving eventually. Oh. And then it'll like turn itself off and then become not movable anymore. So if I demonstrate the practicality of why you'd want to do that. Is that the... yeah, this is the logic one. So we need X-ray. Okay, so I'll make this a bit more logic heavy. Picks up, it's up to 2%. There you go. So now, so you can imagine in this version of the can, it has a lot more memory going on because there's a lot more logic in it. But now if you watch the thermo, and we just play time, and go to all stuff, so it's going up when it becomes that active one, and it allows that special logic to work. But then when you go away, then it reduces it again. So, and it goes up to 22%, and then over time they become kind of dead ones again and don't have that logic, and so it saves room on the thermo. It also saves room on like processing power for all the physics, because the dead version doesn't have any physics enabled on it. So now I'll show you how to recreate such an effect. So I'll just make a showcase scene like that. So first thing, so the basic idea is you have 2 versions. I'll just make these I'll make these cans again, or cylinders. The basic idea is you have this version and you have another version, and we'll make one of them lighter. Just make it white, I guess. And one version has very little logic and stuff on it, and the other version has a load of logic and stuff on it. So, and we kind of swap between them effectively. So first we'll put this into the center of there. If we turn on X-ray, then we can see it's in the middle there. This just makes a few things easier later on. And then we want to trigger this swap at a certain point. So first we'll sort the swap itself out. So we'll use an emitter to emit. We'll have to first. I'll just copy this into there and make sure to group these as well, like that. So now this has a microchip and this has a different microchip. Okay, now we want to emit that thing, and you don't want any speed. And we'll put it onto once mode because we want it to happen just once when we power the emitter. But it has a dot. I don't know if you can see it. Can I even see it? It's in there somewhere. There it is. This dot, and this dot is the at the time that you actually, if I remove that, so when you link an object to this emitter, it finds the center point of that object, and if we turn off preview invisibility, you can see this like red halo thing going on, and that is around the center of the object, and it will kind of extend to the size of the object. So we want that this dot. Oh. There we go. Now this dot is where it will be emitted from. So we want to put that into the center of this version of the object. So now, and we want a destroyer to destroy this whole thing as well at the same time. So when it's, we'll just have a switch for now. We'll turn off grid. And we'll turn it off, and we'll wire it to power both of those. Now to get tell the destroyer what to destroy, you can either tweak the destroyer and use affected objects and plug that into the old group, or in this case I want to use the microchip itself. So if the microchip, it has a apply to object, and I'll apply it to the group. So if the microchip has that set up, then chips inside it will use that as well. So now if I play time and I turn on the switch, then the old one gets destroyed and the new one replaces it in exactly the same spot. So if I turn that off again, I'll change what stuff is going on here so we can tell the difference. So we'll just put a text thingy and we'll have it in the scene, and we'll have it always on top and face camera. Turn it off, and I'll play time, and then I'll turn it on. It gets swapped out and has this display on it, so this could be some UI or something. And normally you'd not have this look any different at all from that version. So then when this gets triggered, all that happens is this other UI appears, and the player is none the wiser that the whole thing was swapped out. Now for this trigger, probably there we go. Probably you don't want it to just have a switch that's either on or off, but instead you might have a trigger zone that is looking for example, the imp. So when the imp enters the trigger zone, it will send a signal, and it will turn on this switch, and that'll power the things and get it replaced. So now if we play time, and I move towards it with the imp, it's suddenly replaced. And so that we can tell the difference more easily, we'll make it white again. So play time, move towards it. When it gets close enough, it swaps out. But we don't want it. Let's say this version is also physical or something, which is more of a real world example. So you go towards it and now it's physical. So it might, and let's make it grabbable by the imp as well. So if we put this on the floor, I'll just make this movable and then pause time and then just tap it with R2 and now it remembers. So if I rewind time, it remembers that that's the initial position. And now I'll turn movable off again, and then I play time, and then when I get near to it, we'll have to do this in play mode. When I get near enough to it, then now it's grabbable and movable and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And it's super heavy for some reason. So let's turn that way down. Okay, and but then we want to, if we've like thrown it or something and then it comes to rest, we want it to turn back into this dead version so that we don't have all whatever logic is going on in here. So let's do that. I'll grab the movement sensor and use the where is it? Acceleration. The reason we want to use acceleration and not velocity is because if you throw something up, then at the top of this arc it has very low velocity until it comes down again, but it still has the acceleration trying to pull it down by gravity. So we don't want it to kind of get to the peak of the arc and then just stop and turn into the dead version. We want it to keep it alive until it falls to the ground and then stops and has no forces acting on it that might make it move. So we'll use that, and we'll also use rotation sensor. This is similar to the movement sensor, but for when it's like being rotated around like that, it'll give signals out. And we'll use a similar angular acceleration. Yeah, so we'll use both of those, or really we'll use either of those to figure out when to go back to the dead version. Now we're going to have a timer. So when it first hits the ground, or when it first stops, we want to give it a little bit of time before it actually goes dead, so that in case like that suddenly the floor underneath it drops out, it'll still remain alive for a little bit. So we use a timer. So I think for now we'll just use a timer as it is, and we'll have it just change back after 1.6 seconds. That'll do. Okay, so this emitter, we want that emitter, we need the grid on again, that emitter to emit that object with no speed and once, and we need to move that, and we'll put it in the center of that can. So, and we need a destroyer again, and we want to link up the microchip to the group, and now as this is going to be emitted, it turns this off. So actually we want to take a copy of that and just turn it on so that we have like a starting point. It should be down like that. Okay. So when this finishes, we want to emit this other dead version and destroy this live version. So let's see if that works. So swaps out. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so it swaps out, and then after a time it swaps back again. So that works okay. Now let's acceleration and if there's, we want to reset it. Oh, turn off the grid. We want to reset it if there's any of that going on. Yeah, so it'll play time. I think to show the, make sure the timer is working, let's plug that into there, like that, so we can see how much time is left effectively. Cool. So now if we like grab it and move it around, that's not working. Did I? Okay, let's grab that and move that up there. Now it wants to actually trigger the reset, it wants a full number 1 signal. So what we'll do is I'll just use a calculator this time and do greater than, just greater than 0, and we'll plug both of those into there so that if either of them are greater than 0, it'll reset that. So I'll plug that into there as well. Okay, go over here and then it's 1. It's funny when it's not working. So what I'm going to do is just copy this over here for debugging. Oh, I think I know what it is. Yeah, so so this is sending, while it's physically moving and stuff, it's just constantly sending 1. So but the reset timer is a trigger, so you want it to send 1 like all if it's receiving 1 all the time, then it's not going from 0 to 1, and when it goes from 0 to 1 it'll actually reset it. So we need to do this a different way. We want to reset, but we also want to put this in speed mode and have it the speed mode basically means it'll use the number you're sending into start timer as the speed it will go. So if you send a 1, it will go in real time, 1 second per second. If you send 2, it'll increase 2 seconds per second. And you can pause time and rewind time and stuff like that using that. So I'll say if it's currently not moving, so this is when it's moving, this is when it's not moving. When it's not moving, then we'll start playing this timer. So yeah, so now let's test mode. So it's moving and it's reset the timer, and it's moving, reset timer, and then when it stops it will start the timer. Okay, so we figured out the problem. Now we'll fix it over here. So we need a not gate. When it's not moving, we'll play time, put it on speed mode. So go towards it, and when moving it, it stays active until it stops moving for a bit. Like that. Cool. Yeah, so now using this principle, you can have any amount of stuff going on in this version, but you'll only ever have like a few copies of this more complex logic, and they'll only be in the scene when necessary. Whereas this version is a lot simpler, and you can even remove the switch as well. and there'll be a lot more of them. So you'll be able to fit a lot more of these basic ones in your scene. So if we'll just test that now, has it got the emitter in it? Yeah. So I'll turn on the grid. And I'll expand this floor out a bit. And now we try it. You can see as we get close to any of these things, they're like, one thing we need to add is if it's still got the imp over it, whether it's physically moving or not, we don't want it to keep on flickering like they do, like that. So we want to have this detected as well over here. So that would be if it's moving or the imp is close, then reset, otherwise continue the timer. So now when we just hang around near it, it's fine. So yeah. It's still like super heavy, but yeah. So even this like jaunty one on here goes dead and stays in the right position. Ooh, saved. Cool.